The world of One Piece is built on a fragile balance of power. At the top of the hierarchy stand two dominant forces, the world government, which rules over the seas with an iron grip, and the four emperors, the most powerful pirate crews in existence. Each emperor commands an army of elite fighters, possesses incredible individual strength, and has established absolute control over vast territories. These pirates are considered threats of the highest order, capable of challenging even the strongest forces in the world. But what if they all united? What if the four emperors, red-haired Shanks, Blackbeard, Big Mom, and Kaido, decided to launch a full-scale assault on the world government? Would the combined strength of these legendary figures be enough to shatter the government's hold on the world? Or would the immense military power of the Marines, the Admirals, and the secret forces lurking in the shadows be enough to fend off this unprecedented attack? To analyze this scenario, we must break down the power structure of the world government and measure it against the combined might of the emperors. Each of the four emperors holds a reputation that strikes fear into the hearts of both civilians and Marines alike. They are not mere pirates, they are institutions unto themselves, with armies, influence, and unmatched combat abilities. Shanks. As one of the most enigmatic emperors, Shanks is feared for his unmatched Haki abilities, particularly his Conqueror's Haki. His mere presence is enough to send weaker enemies into unconsciousness, and his swordsmanship is rivaled by few. He also commands one of the most disciplined and elite pirate crews in existence. Blackbeard, a wild card in the battle, Blackbeard is the only known person to wield two devil fruits, including the destructive power of the Gura Gura no Mi, which allows him to create massive earthquakes capable of sinking islands. His strategic mind and unpredictable nature make him a dangerous opponent. Big Mom, possessing near-invulnerable skin and a seemingly limitless supply of raw power, Big Mom can manipulate souls, control elements through her Homis, and unleash devastating attacks. Her pirate crew, composed of her many powerful children, is also one of the most formidable in the world. Kaido, dubbed the strongest creature in the world, Kaido's resilience is legendary. He has survived countless executions, and his dragon form makes him a nearly indestructible force of nature. His army, the Beast Pirates, is filled with powerful Zoan devil fruit users, making them an overwhelming force in any war. If these four powerhouses united under a common goal, they would form the single greatest pirate alliance in history. However, the world government is not without its own terrifying forces. The world government, despite its corrupt nature, is a behemoth of military and political power. It maintains order across the world through the Marines, the Cypher Paul intelligence agencies, and secretive entities like the Five Elders and Aimu. The Marine Forces. The Marines boast an army of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. While lower-ranking Marines are no match for an emperor's forces, the presence of powerful officers, vice-admirals, and their strongest warriors, the admirals, would make the fight much more difficult. The current fleet of admirals, Akainu, Kizaru, Fujitora, and Green Bull, each possesses an ability that could influence the battlefield significantly. Akainu's magma-based attacks are among the most destructive in the series, while Kizaru's light-speed movements make him nearly untouchable. Cypher Paul and CP0. Cypher Paul, particularly CP0, consists of elite assassins who specialize in espionage and direct combat. They are the hidden blade of the government and possess advanced combat skills that rival even some of the strongest pirates. The Seraphim. These newly developed superweapons, based on former warlords and enhanced with Lunarian abilities, are considered nearly indestructible. Their advanced combat abilities make them a major challenge, even for the emperors. The Five Elders and Aimu. The Five Elders, once considered mere political figures, have now been revealed to possess monstrous abilities and transformations, making them some of the most dangerous individuals in the One Piece world. Aimu, the shadowy ruler behind the throne, remains an enigma, but given their authority over the world's greatest forces, it is highly likely that they possess an unmatched level of power that could turn the tide of battle. If the four emperors launched a coordinated assault, the war would likely unfold in multiple stages, each escalating in intensity. Initial invasion. The battle would begin with the lower-ranking Marines and Vice-Admirals attempting to halt the advance of the Emperor's forces. While the sheer numbers would slow down the pirates, these foot soldiers would eventually be overwhelmed by the superior strength of the Emperor crews. The Admiral Confrontation. The admirals would be the first major line of resistance. Each admiral is a powerhouse, capable of taking on multiple opponents at once. However, with 4 emperors present, the odds would shift. Luffy, Shanks, and Blackbeard would likely take on Akainu, Kizaru, and Fujitora, while Kaido or Big Mom could engage Green Bull. The fights would be explosive, but the sheer battle experience of the emperors might give them the upper hand. Cypher Paul and Seraphim joined the fight. With CP0 and the Seraphim reinforcing the government, the tide could turn. The Seraphim's Lunarian durability and combat abilities would pose a significant challenge, forcing even high-ranking pirates to fight at their limits. The 5 elders enter the battlefield. As the war rages on, the 5 elders reveal their monstrous forms, proving to be nearly indestructible. Their abilities, possibly supernatural in nature, could begin wiping out large portions of the Emperor crews. Aimu's final move. If the battle reaches a true climax, Aimu would make their appearance. As the final and most powerful force of the world government, Aimu's abilities would likely surpass even the Emperor's, ensuring the government's victory in the long run. The battle between the 4 emperors and the world government would be the most destructive conflict in history. However, despite their immense strength, the emperors may not have enough resources to completely overthrow the government. The sheer number of reinforcements, advanced weaponry, and unknown abilities possessed by the government would eventually wear them down. Even if the emperors manage to defeat the admirals and CP0, the true power of the 5 elders and Aimu remains a mystery. Given what has been hinted about Aimu's authority and abilities, it is likely that their intervention would turn the tide against the pirates. In the end, while the 4 emperors could shake the foundations of the world government, they would likely fall short of absolute victory. The balance of power in the One Piece world is maintained for a reason, and unless an unknown factor intervenes, the government would likely remain standing, albeit weakened. This hypothetical war would be a spectacle unlike anything seen before, a clash of titans, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. The battle begins. As the 4 emperors launch their unprecedented assault on the world government, the first line of defense consists of an overwhelming force of lower-ranked marines. This stage sets the tone for the war, as the initial wave of government forces seeks to halt the advance of the pirate crews before they reach the core of the government's power. The sheer number of marines is staggering, 300,000 soldiers stationed across key strongholds, ready to fight for their lives. However, the first force to engage them is none other than the Straw Hat crew, led by Monkey D. Luffy, one of the most dangerous pirates in the world and an emperor in his own right. Despite being outnumbered, the Straw Hats are no ordinary crew. Each member possesses abilities that place them leagues above the average marine, and with the power of Haki, Devil Fruits, and sheer battle experience, the lower-ranked marines stand little chance. The world government deploys its soldiers strategically, spreading them across various strongholds to maximize their numbers. The moment the Emperor's forces approach, the marines sound the alarm, readying their guns, cannons, and weapons. From the air, it looks like an endless sea of white and blue uniforms, stretching as far as the eye can see. The soldiers stand in tightly packed formations, rifles aimed forward, warships lined along the coasts with their cannons locked onto the incoming pirates. Vice admirals issue commands. Hold your positions. Do not let them break through. Fire at will. Within seconds, a massive barrage of bullets, cannonballs, and explosive shells rains down upon the Straw Hats as they charge forward. However, their confidence is misplaced. At the front of the attack is Monkey D. Luffy, charging ahead with a fearless grin. With his mastery over Conqueror's Haki, he doesn't even need to lift a finger before thousands of marines collapse unconscious, their willpower completely crushed under the sheer force of his presence. A single wave of Haoshoku Haki wipes out nearly half the front lines, leaving behind thousands of marines slumped over, their bodies sprawled across the battlefield. The remaining soldiers, those with stronger resolve, tremble at the sight, their hands shaking as they grip their weapons. Luffy wastes no time. Activating Gear 5th, his body becomes a glowing, rubbery force of nature, bouncing through the battlefield with unpredictable, cartoon-like agility. Bullets and cannonballs bend around him like toys as he stretches, dodges, and deflects incoming attacks with laughter. Gomu Gomu no. Gigant Pistol. Luffy's fist expands to the size of a battleship before slamming into the ground, sending shockwaves rippling across the battlefield. Dozens of Marines are launched into the air, their formations shattered while Luffy dismantles the front lines. His crew moves in with terrifying efficiency, demonstrating why they are among the strongest pirate crews in the world. Zoro, the unstoppable swordsman. Roronoa Zoro unsheathes his 3 swords, his eyes locked onto the strongest marine officers in the crowd. He vanishes in an instant, moving faster than the human eye can track. Santoryu. Rengoku Onigiri. In one swift motion, hundreds of Marines are cut down, their weapons shattered, their defenses broken. Even those wearing advanced armor find themselves sliced apart as Zoro's haki-infused blades cut through steel like paper. When a particularly brave Marine officer steps forward, wielding a massive battle axe, Zoro simply smirks. "You're not ready for this." With a single King of Hell-style slash, the officer is sent flying through an entire warship, splitting it in half from the opposite side of the battlefield. Sanji launches into the air with an explosive burst of power, his Ifrit jam burning hotter than ever. He moves too fast for the Marines to react, appearing in front of them in a blur before striking. Birth Burst. A single flaming kick incinerates an entire squad, sending dozens of soldiers hurtling into the sky like shooting stars. The unlucky ones caught directly in the impact are knocked out instantly, their bodies landing in craters formed from the sheer force of the blow. Sanji effortlessly weaves through the battlefield, kicking rifles out of Marines' hands, dodging their strikes with ease, and delivering lightning-fast blows that leave them unconscious before they even register what happened. As the former warlord of the sea, Jinbe knows exactly how to handle large groups of enemies. Standing firm in the middle of the battlefield, he raises his hands and summons a massive wave with Fishman Karate. Kaimen Wary. The shockwave blasts forward like a tsunami, sending Marines tumbling in all directions. Those unfortunate enough to be caught directly in the attack find their bones shattered from the sheer pressure of the impact. Jinbe then moves effortlessly through the battlefield, delivering precise, powerful strikes that send Marine officers flying like ragdolls. His natural durability allows him to brush off gunfire and sword strikes, making him an unstoppable force. While the monster trio and Jinbe handle the bulk of the battle, the other Straw Hats contribute in their own unique ways. Franky transforms into his Iron Pirate form, unleashing explosive Franky radical beams that wipe out entire Marine formations. Robin uses her Gigantesco Mano ability to summon massive hands, grabbing and crushing dozens of enemies at a time. Usopp provides long-range support, sniping Marine commanders with pinpoint precision. Nomi calls upon Zeus, summoning thunderstorms to electrocute enemy troops. Brook glides across the battlefield, his freezing swordplay sending chills down the spines of his enemies, before literally freezing them solid. Chopper enters Monster Point, rampaging through the Marine ranks like an unstoppable beast. Within minutes, the battlefield is reduced to complete chaos. The Straw Hats have carved a path of destruction straight through the first line of the world government's defenses. The remaining Marines begin to panic, their will to fight breaking. Despite their numbers, they simply cannot match the raw power and experience of the Straw Hat crew. Soon, the surviving officers call for a retreat, realizing that further resistance is futile. What was supposed to be an organized defense turns into a full-scale rout. Luffy, standing amidst the wreckage, watches the Marines flee. He cracks his knuckles, grinning with excitement. That was just the first wave. We've still got a long way to go. With that, the Straw Hats press forward, knowing that stronger enemies await them in the next stage of the battle. After tearing through 300,000 lower-ranked Marines like a hurricane, the Straw Hat crew advances deeper into the world government's stronghold. However, the battle is far from over. As they move forward, the tides of war shift dramatically. Waiting for them at the next line of defense are 50 vice admirals, each a seasoned warrior capable of leading fleets and battling powerful pirates. Unlike the lower-ranked Marines, these officers are elite fighters, masters of haki, skilled in battle strategy, and individually strong enough to take on powerful pirates in their own right. But among them stands one man who eclipses them all, Monkey D. Garp, the legendary Marine hero. Garp, a man feared by even the strongest pirates, cracks his knuckles and smiles. Luffy, you've made quite a mess, but let's see if you've really become strong enough to challenge me. As the battle begins, Luffy faces off against his grandfather, while Zoro, Sanji, and the rest of the Straw Hats engage the formidable Vice Admirals. Unlike the chaotic, overwhelming numbers of the lower-ranked Marines, this fight is different. The Vice Admirals are spread out strategically, creating an impenetrable line of defense that forces the Straw Hats into individual duels. Each Vice Admiral is armed with powerful Haki, making them much tougher opponents than the weak Marines who fell before them. The air crackles with tension as swords are drawn, fists are clenched, and the Straw Hats prepare for their biggest challenge yet. The fight everyone had been waiting for finally begins. Luffy stares at his grandfather, determination burning in his eyes. Garp, however, is as relaxed as ever, his expression a mixture of pride and battle-hardened experience. Without warning, Garp moves first. Fist of Love. Luffy barely reacts before a massive Haki-infused fist slams into his face, sending him hurtling backward and crashing into a nearby fortress. The sheer impact shatters buildings, shaking the battlefield. But Luffy isn't the same boy he once was. He launches himself back into the air, activating Gear 5th as he grins. Gomu Gomu no. Dawn Gatling. Luffy's gigantic fists rain down in a furious barrage, the ground quaking under the sheer force of his attack. But Garp doesn't dodge, instead, he meets every punch with his own, sending shockwaves through the battlefield as their fists collide. The battle rages on, with neither willing to back down. Meanwhile, Zoro and Sanji are tasked with taking down the most powerful Vice Admirals, including Tsuru, Smoker, and Momonga. Zoro vs. Momonga, the duel of swordsmen. Momonga, one of the strongest Vice Admirals, is a master swordsman with exceptional skill in armament Haki. He stands firm as Zoro approaches, his blade gleaming. So, you're the infamous Roronoa Zoro, Momonga says, raising his sword. I've heard about you, but your journey ends here. Zoro smirks, drawing his 3 swords. Let's find out if you can back up that talk. The two clash in a blinding flurry of sword strikes, their blades moving faster than the eye can track. Sparks fly as steel meets steel, their Haki-infused attacks causing the ground to split beneath them. After a furious exchange, Zoro activates King of Hell style, unleashing a Haki-empowered Ashura attack that overwhelms Momonga. With a devastating final strike, Zoro cuts him down, leaving him unconscious on the battlefield. On the other side of the battlefield, Sanji faces off against Smoker, the Vice Admiral he has clashed with many times before. Smoker, using his Moku Moku no Mi smoke abilities, tries to entrap Sanji in a cloud of thick smoke. But Sanji's speed is on another level. He blitzes through the battlefield, dodging Smoker's attacks with ease before activating Ifrit Jam. His flames burn blue-hot as he delivers a lightning-fast kick to Smoker's chest, sending the Vice Admiral crashing through the battlefield. Though Smoker fights back with determination, he is ultimately outmatched. Sanji's superior Haki allows him to land a final burst, knocking Smoker unconscious. While Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji handle the strongest opponents, the rest of the Straw Hat crew is locked in battle with the remaining Vice Admirals. Jinbe vs. Tsuru. Tsuru, the legendary marine strategist, wields an unusual devil fruit ability that can wash away evil. Jinbe, knowing the danger, fights strategically, using Fishman Karate to counter her attacks. His immense strength and mastery of Haki allow him to overpower her, dealing a powerful Fishman Karate palm thrust that sends her flying. Robin creates gigantic limbs to immobilize multiple Vice Admirals at once, crushing them with her Gigantesco Mano technique. Frankie unleashes radical beams, blasting through entire squadrons of Marine officers. Usopp, from a distance, snipes Vice Admirals in their weak points, using trick shots and clever strategy to disrupt their formations. As the battle rages on, the most emotional moment finally arrives. Luffy vs. Garp reaches its climax. Both warriors are exhausted, their bodies battered from the sheer intensity of their fight. But Luffy, driven by his dream, refuses to back down. With one final Gear 5th attack, Luffy lands a devastating punch, sending Garp crashing into the battlefield below. Dust and debris rise as the legendary Marine falls unconscious. A silence spreads across the battlefield. The Vice Admirals, seeing their strongest warrior defeated, begin to lose morale. With one final push, the Straw Hats deliver the finishing blows, knocking out the remaining Vice Admirals. The second stage is won. The battlefield is in ruins. The Straw Hats stand victorious, but they are exhausted. As Luffy looks down at his fallen grandfather, he clenches his fists, knowing that the war is far from over. The next stage of the battle will be even tougher, because the admirals are waiting. After the intense battle against the vice admirals and the legendary marine hero Garp, the Straw Hats find themselves exhausted but victorious. The battlefield is littered with fallen marines, and the once imposing defensive lines of the world government have been shattered. But the war is far from over. The moment the vice admirals fall, a new presence emerges. The air grows heavy, filled with an oppressive aura of unmatched power. From the heart of the battlefield, four figures step forward, their very existence striking fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned warriors. The Navy admirals have arrived. Behind them, CP0, the world government's most elite and ruthless assassins, descend onto the battlefield. Clad in white masks and moving with deadly precision, they are not merely warriors, they are executioners. The real battle has only just begun. The admirals stand tall, their very presence a symbol of the world government's supreme military power. Fleet Admiral Akainu, Sakazuki, the man who embodies absolute justice, wielding the terrifying Magu Magu no Mi, Magma fruit. His mere presence radiates heat, melting the ground beneath him. Admiral Kizaru, Borsalino, a warrior of light, with the Pika no Mi, Glint fruit, moving at the speed of light and delivering devastating laser-based attacks. Admiral Fujitora, Isho, a blind swordsman with the power of the Zushi no Mi, gravity fruit, able to control gravity itself, summoning meteorites and warping the battlefield. Admiral Green Bull, Ryokugyu, a newer addition to the admirals, wielding the mysterious Mori no Mi, forest fruit, able to control plant life and drain energy from his enemies. They advance in unison, their confidence unshaken despite the destruction around them. Akainu glares at the battlefield, his face twisted in anger. Enough of this nonsense. Time to burn these pirates out of existence. With a single step, the war erupts once more. The moment the admirals unleash their power, the battlefield descends into chaos. Luffy versus Akainu, the rematch of fate. Luffy's eyes burn with fury as he locks onto Akainu, the man responsible for Ace's death. Without hesitation, Luffy activates Gear 5th, his body bouncing with chaotic energy as he launches himself toward the fleet admiral. Akainu, unfazed, raises his magma-covered fist and meets Luffy head-on. Die, brat! Akainu snarls, sending a massive magma punch toward Luffy. The battlefield shakes as fist meets fist, the very air igniting from the sheer power of their clash. Despite Luffy's strength, Akainu's attacks are fueled by pure hatred and unrelenting willpower. This isn't just a fight, it's war. As Luffy battles Akainu, Zoro faces off against Fujitora, the blind swordsman who manipulates gravity. Fujitora swings his blade, and an invisible force presses down on Zoro, pinning him to the ground. The weight of justice is heavy, pirate, Fujitora states calmly. Zoro grits his teeth, his muscles straining under the force. Too bad. I never cared about weight. With a roar, he unleashes King of Hell style, his conqueror's haki-infused sword slashing through the gravity field, nullifying its effect. The two swordsmen clash in a flurry of steel, neither giving an inch. Sanji finds himself facing Kizaru, the man who moves at the speed of light. Kizaru smirks, lazily aiming his finger laser at Sanji. Can you keep up with light, boy? Sanji disappears in a blur, dodging the beam just before impact. The ground explodes where he stood, leaving behind a burning crater. Activating Ifrit Jam, Sanji retaliates with a burst, launching a blue-flamed kick at Kizaru. The two fighters move at speeds too fast for the human eye, turning their duel into a deadly game of cat and mouse. While the monster trio battles the admirals, the rest of the crew is left to fight CP0. Rob Lucci, Koku, and Stussy lead the assassination squad, striking with deadly precision. Jinbe engages Lucci in a battle of brute force, their clashes causing shockwaves across the battlefield. Brook and Robin team up against Koku, using their combined abilities to outmaneuver the skilled swordsman. Frankie and Usopp fight off a wave of masked CP0 agents, holding their ground despite being outnumbered. Despite their strength, the Straw Hats begin to falter. The admirals and CP0 are simply too powerful, and exhaustion starts to take its toll. Just as it seems like the Straw Hats are about to be overwhelmed, reinforcements arrive. A massive fleet appears on the horizon, and at the front stands Buggy, Mihawk, and Crocodile, the leaders of Cross Guild. "Looks like you guys need a little help," Crocodile smirks, his sand swirling around him. Mihawk draws his legendary blade, his gaze locked onto Fujitora, ready for an epic swordsman's duel. With their arrival, the battle reignites. Mihawk versus Fujitora, the strongest swordsman faces off against the Gravity Master in an incredible display of skill. Crocodile versus Green Bull, the Desert King's sand abilities clash against Green Bull's plant-based powers. Buggy hides behind a rock. With fresh fighters in the battle, the tides momentarily shift. Even with the Cross Guild's arrival, the battle remains one-sided. The admirals, refusing to be overwhelmed, push back harder than ever. Akainu defeats Luffy, burning him badly and forcing him out of Gear 5th. Fujitora and Mihawk's duel ends in a stalemate, but the battlefield around them collapses. Green Bull overpowers Crocodile, using his vines to drain his energy. CP0 begins assassinating weakened fighters, eliminating key members of the Cross Guild's forces. One by one, the pirates start falling. Seeing no way to win, the remaining Straw Hats and Cross Guild members retreat, leaving their fallen behind. The world government stands victorious at this stage. The battle against the admirals and CP0 ends in a crushing loss. The Straw Hats and their allies barely escape, suffering severe injuries. As they retreat, Luffy looks back, his fists clenching in frustration. "We weren't strong enough, but we're not done yet." Despite their loss, the war is far from over. After the devastating loss against the admirals and CP0, the Straw Hat crew and the Cross Guild are forced to retreat, suffering massive injuries and casualties. The world government has once again proven its unmatched military might, repelling two of the most notorious pirate forces in history. However, the war is far from over. As the dust settles and the admirals prepare to push forward, a dark presence looms over the battlefield. Zehahaha. Looks like I arrived just in time. A massive fleet appears on the horizon. Towering warships, each adorned with the Jolly Roger of Blackbeard, fill the ocean. Standing at the helm of the largest vessel is none other than Marshal D. Teach, the most unpredictable and ruthless of the four emperors. With him stands his fearsome crew, including former Admiral Aokiji, Kuzan, Shiryu of the Rain, and the Titanic captains, each a monster in their own right. The balance of power shifts once more. As Blackbeard's fleet lands on the shores of the battlefield, the remaining Straw Hats and Cross Guild fighters regroup, momentarily catching their breath. Their eyes widen in disbelief as they realize what is happening. "What the hell is Blackbeard doing here?" Zoro growls, gripping his swords. Luffy, battered and barely able to stand, watches as Blackbeard steps onto the battlefield, grinning. "Luffy, I gotta admit, you sure know how to stir up chaos." Blackbeard laughs. "But don't worry, I ain't here to fight you, not yet, anyway." Instead of attacking the weakened pirates, Blackbeard marches toward the world government's forces, ready to conquer the battlefield for himself. The fight resumes the moment Blackbeard's forces arrive, the admirals spring into action. Akainu versus Blackbeard, Magma versus Darkness. Akainu, furious that yet another emperor has joined the battle, immediately charges at Blackbeard. "You damn pirates just don't know when to quit," he snarls, launching a volcanic fist straight at Teach. Blackbeard grins, activating the Yami Yami no Mi, absorbing the attack into his infinite darkness. "That ain't gonna work on me, Sakazuki." Teach yells before retaliating with a devastating Gura Gura no Mi shockwave. The ground shatters beneath them, and the battlefield is engulfed in chaos. Meanwhile, Aokiji faces his former comrade, Kizaru. Kizaru, his usual smug demeanor unchanged, sighs. "So, Kuzan, you finally turned against the Marines for real?" Aokiji doesn't answer. Instead, he raises his hand, freezing the entire area in an instant. "I made my choice a long time ago." The Battle of Ice and Light begins, their attacks illuminating the battlefield in flashes of gold and blue. While the admirals struggle against Blackbeard's monstrous crew, the remaining CP0 agents find themselves completely outmatched. Shiryu of the Rain duels Rob Lucci, his invisibility ability giving him a deadly edge. Burgess and Pizarro rampage through CP0's ranks, taking down elite assassins with ease. Van Auger's deadly sniping skills eliminate key government forces from afar. Within minutes, CP0 is completely decimated amidst the carnage. Monkey D. Garp stands alone, his fists clenched. Despite his injuries, the legendary Marine refuses to go down without a fight. Blackbeard, you bastard! Garp charges forward, delivering a devastating Haki-infused punch that sends Blackbeard flying. Teach coughs up blood, but laughs. Damn, old man. You still hit like a monster. However, despite his strength, Garp is outnumbered. The Titanic captains surround him, attacking from all sides. Even with his legendary strength, Garp can't hold them off forever. In a moment of sheer brutality, Shiryu delivers a fatal slash across Garp's chest, cutting deep. Garp staggers. Blood pours from his wound. For the first time in his life, Garp falls. The battlefield falls silent. Luffy, still weak from his fight with Akainu, watches in horror. Grandpa! Blackbeard laughs triumphantly as his crew claims victory at this stage. Despite Blackbeard's victory, the world government is not done yet. A chilling mechanical hum fills the air. From the distance, a fleet of warships arrives, carrying the Seraphim, the most advanced biological weapons ever created. The battle isn't over yet, pirates. The Seraphim, genetically enhanced clones of the former warlords of the sea, step onto the battlefield. Their Lunarian DNA makes them almost invulnerable, their devil fruit abilities identical to their originals, and their combat efficiency far surpasses any Marine or pirate. The tide turns once more as the battle resumes. The Seraphim begin their assault. Seraphim Mihawk vs. Zoro and Shiryu. A perfect clone of Dracula Mihawk charges toward Zoro, wielding an exact replica of his legendary blade. Zoro, still recovering from his fight with Fujitora, grits his teeth. Damn it! This thing is even stronger than the real one. Even with Shiryu's help, the Seraphim cannot be cut down. Their Lunarian durability makes them nearly invincible. A clone of Bartholomew Kumar appears, firing powerful Ursus's shock blasts that devastate the battlefield. Luffy, still exhausted, barely manages to dodge. This is bad. We can't even hurt them. One by one, the Emperor crews struggle against the overwhelming power of the Seraphim. Crocodile is defeated, unable to bypass their defense. Sanji's kicks barely leave a scratch. Even Blackbeard finds himself on the defensive. As the battle drags on, the pirates begin to fall. Seeing no way to win, Blackbeard and the surviving pirates call for a retreat. Luffy, struggling to stand, clenches his fists in frustration. Damn it! We're not strong enough. The world government stands victorious once more. As the remaining pirates flee into the ocean, one thing is clear. The war is far from over. The war had already consumed everything. The battlefield was littered with fallen warriors, Marines, CP0 agents, pirates, and even legendary figures like Garp had been struck down. Blackbeard's crew had managed to shift the tide, but the arrival of the Seraphim had once again turned the war in the world government's favor. The pirates were battered, retreating, and seemingly on the verge of total defeat. Then, a new presence filled the air. It wasn't a crushing weight like Akainu's rage, nor was it the eerie sensation that accompanied the arrival of the Seraphim. This presence was different, controlled, calm, and immeasurably powerful. From beyond the horizon, a new fleet approached. At the head of the fleet was a single ship, the Red Force, and standing at the bow, his red hair blowing in the wind, was none other than Shanks, the red-haired Emperor of the Sea. The arrival of the final Emperor crew changed everything. As Shanks' fleet docked, the remaining pirates, Luffy, Blackbeard, and their respective crews, looked toward the sea in awe. Zoro, still barely standing, exhaled in relief. Finally, reinforcements worth something. Sanji grinned. Took him long enough. Even Blackbeard, usually so confident, clicked his tongue in irritation. TCH. That bastard always shows up when things get interesting. Shanks, walking onto the battlefield, observed the destruction. His usual carefree demeanor was nowhere to be seen. His expression was serious, his eyes burning with quiet fury. He turned to Luffy, offering a small smirk. You've done well, Luffy. But I think it's time we wrap this up. Then, with a single step, Shanks released his Conqueror's Haki. The entire battlefield shook. The remaining admirals, Akainu, Kizaru, Fujitora, and Green Bull, stood their ground. Despite everything, they were still the world government's strongest warriors, and they weren't about to surrender. But this time, they weren't facing a losing battle, they were facing a death sentence. Shanks versus Akainu, the final showdown. Akainu, filled with rage and determination, charged at Shanks, magma overflowing from his fists. "I won't let you pirates win," he roared, launching a massive magma fist toward Shanks. Shanks didn't move. Then, in an instant, he unsheathed his sword, Griffin, and cut straight through Akainu's attack. The magma attack, which had previously burned through Ace and Whitebeard, was completely nullified. Before Akainu could even react, Shanks vanished and reappeared behind him. "This is the end, Sakazuki." With a single strike infused with advanced Conqueror's Haki, Shanks slashed Akainu across the chest. The attack sent the fleet admiral flying, blood spraying into the air. Akainu, the man who had seemed unstoppable, collapsed, unconscious and defeated. The Marines watched in horror. With the admirals being taken down, the Seraphim still stood as a near-invulnerable force. But Shanks' officers, Beckman, Lucky Roo, and Yasop, weren't ordinary pirates. Beckman, known as the smartest man in the New World, used advanced Haki-infused bullets to cripple the Seraphim's movements. Lucky Roo, a speed demon, delivered devastating blows before the Seraphim could even react. Yasop, the greatest sniper in the world, picked off weak points in the Seraphim's defenses, momentarily staggering them. The Seraphim, for the first time in battle, began to falter. For the first time, victory seemed possible. Then, the sky darkened. A chill ran down the spines of every warrior on the battlefield. A new presence had arrived. A massive shadow loomed over the battlefield. The very air seemed to freeze, and even the strongest warriors, Shanks, Luffy, and Blackbeard, felt an overwhelming pressure unlike anything they had ever encountered before. Atop Marie Joyce, standing above the battlefield, was a figure cloaked in darkness, a figure that should not exist. The true ruler of the world had revealed themselves. Aimu had arrived, and no one knew exactly what Aimu was. Their face remained hidden, their body cloaked in shadow, but their presence alone made even the most powerful conquerors tremble. Then, with a simple gesture, they raised a single hand. A massive black energy wave shot from their palm, aimed directly at the battlefield. Perish! The attack obliterated everything in its path. Teach, realizing the true threat, unleashed both his devil fruits in desperation. "I ain't going down without a fight." He fired a massive shockwave from the Gura Gura no Mi, followed by a black hole attack from the Yami Yami no Mi. Aimu didn't even flinch. With a flick of their wrist, they reversed the attack, sending it straight back at Blackbeard. Teach screamed as his own power crushed him, breaking every bone in his body. The Blackbeard pirates scattered, their leader defeated. Shanks, sensing the endgame, stepped forward, standing between Aimu and Luffy. "Luffy, get out of here." Luffy, battered and barely able to move, shook his head. "No. We can still win." Shanks smiled sadly. "Not this time." Aimu raised their hand once more. A black energy spear formed, aimed directly at Luffy. At the last second, Shanks moved in front of the attack. The spear pierced straight through him. Shanks collapsed. The red-haired Emperor was dead. Luffy, enraged beyond reason, activated Gear 5 one last time. His body glowed with divine energy, his attacks now unstoppable. But even that wasn't enough. Aimu blocked every attack effortlessly, as if Luffy's power was nothing but a child's tantrum. Then, with one final attack, Aimu sent a wave of darkness crashing down upon Luffy. The straw hat fell. The battlefield fell silent. Every pirate had fallen. Every emperor had been defeated. The world government had won. As the dust settled, Aimu stood alone, their power undeniable. The war was over. And the world belonged to the world government once more. The surviving pirates were hunted down. The revolutionaries, straw hats, and remnants of the emperors scattered across the world. But even in defeat, a fire still burned. Somewhere in the shadows, a new generation was preparing. The war was lost, but the fight was far from over.